I'm Melanie Johnson, along with my co-host Jen Foster. We are both 13-time best-selling authors. We've published over 2,500 books and made all of our authors #1 bestsellers. We own Elite Online Publishing. If you want to become a best-selling author, look us up at eliteonlinepublishing.com. Now, welcome to the podcast that shares secrets from top industry experts that show you how to get lasting success and results. This is the Elite Expert Insider Podcast. Hi, everyone. This is Melanie Johnson. Welcome to another great podcast with my co-owner of Elite Online Publishing, Jen Foster. Hi, Jen.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
Well, we're having a great day here today. It's always a great day on our podcast. First, we want to remind you, if you're thinking about writing a book, that has just been a huge trend of all these celebrities and well-known people and people trying to get well-known is to write a book. And we're here to help you at Elite Online Publishing. We guarantee all our authors will be #1 bestsellers. We don't choose everybody to work with us. But if you're looking to write a book, reach out to us at our website, eliteonlinepublishing.com. All right, let's dive into it today. Education has been a huge, huge topic lately. We've had COVID and people are now having to teach their kids at home. And some of you are finding how crazy it is and challenging it is. But then you may notice how outdated our education system is. I know my sons who are now in college and Jen's sons who are high school and daughter that are in college, they're thinking, what are they teaching me? Actually, my son was getting accounting analog version. Like he was having to manually write in things in a spreadsheet. He's like, Mom, why am I doing this? You know, like there's technology and we're paying a lot of money at his college to go to school. So let's talk about at any age group, how should the education system be shifting? What can you do to be a part of it? How do you prepare your kids to be ready for the new world with AI? How do you prepare yourself for job transitioning and AI coming in? And that's artificial intelligence for those of you who are like, what's AI? Just so you know. So let's dive in. We have Leah Coss with us today, who's an expert at this. Leah, thanks for coming.
Oh, my pleasure.
Well, tell us, Leah, a little bit about how you got into the education and into this field of helping with kids and entrepreneurship and education.
And, you know, like so many people's story, it was serendipity, just something kind of smacked me in the face one day. But the irony is throughout my whole career, I've been a franchise consultant, helping business owners who have a business model and they want to scale it using franchising. So I would help them figure out if that was right and then help them with scaling. And then I was really leaning into that. I was going to write a book. I was doing interviews with CEOs. And then all of a sudden I sat down with an old friend, Tressa, and she had switched from being a CEO and in the franchise industry to actually creating a curriculum that taught kids entrepreneurship. And it was that day that even then I was like, oh, this is really great for other people to do. This is so cool what you've created. And it wasn't until I brought it home and I started talking about it. And then all of a sudden, you know, whenever I tell anybody what it is we do, about how we teach kids practical education, hands-on experience, relevance in the real world today, they go, I wish we had this when I was a kid. #1 thing that people say. Well, that was my moment. I was sitting there going, what the heck? Like, imagine if I had even just that one course when I was a kid. There's no such thing growing up as entrepreneurship, and women in leadership was like the only role model I had on TV growing up. And this is going to date me, but Murphy Brown. You know, I was like, oh, in order to be a powerhouse in the business world, you have to be a raging alcoholic and everybody has to hate you and you yell a lot, right? So, you know, I was just dying for my shoulder pads and big hair and to start yelling at people because I thought that's what you had to do. So I just all of a sudden started having, you know, those moments, and maybe it was a glass of wine or whatever, but I just went down this rabbit hole of like, my gosh, what would have happened if all of the lessons I learned when I started my first business and crashed and burned. But of course, I couldn't show it to anybody. You know, for 4 years, I had to live a complete, you know, imposter syndrome life and hide everything that was happening. But everybody presumed I was really, really successful. And then when I did crash and burn, I still didn't want to share with everybody what had happened. And it took so long because of my ego to even figure out what went wrong. And I realized that it was just so many skills that I'd read in a book. I mean, I read all the greats, you know, Good to Great, E-Myth, every book that was big back then I had read. And I was like, on paper, between that and going to business school, I was way more qualified to run a business than most of the people I was selling franchises to. So why did I fail? And I realized it had nothing to do with technical skills. It had nothing to do with what I was taught in college. I laugh because, when I went to college, they taught us still about coupon clipping as a good, healthy marketing strategy, and social media was nowhere to be found in my curriculum. So very outdated. And I just thought, what is it? It was the human skills. It was the human factor, the resiliency, the persistence, the communication, the ability to work with a team, the ability to lead. There was so many skills that had not been taught, and I certainly wasn't being praised for it. It was all about my A's on the math test, A's on my English exams, and all of this stuff had fallen apart. So it was that moment that I realized something needs to change. And of course, we see things that need to change in the world all the time. But for whatever reason, that day, I was just like, I'm going to take action on changing this. But it was just going to be a side project, a fun hobby that fulfilled this need for me to contribute to society. And now it's kind of like exploded, and it's my livelihood, and I'm going to be buried with it. So,
I find that so fascinating. We've had conversations. I mean, Jen and I learned several years ago that one of the things we should do is when our kids get old enough is to set them up with an LLC. So like my oldest has a couple LLCs now that he's doing, and they're saying the trend is for your 13-year-old for the 13th birthday to give him an LLC because they're starting these businesses online, which has to go with, you're teaching entrepreneurship. So think about, we're supposed to be teaching our kids math. Like you said, do I get 100 on my math test? Am I getting an A in math? And yes, those things are important to learn English and math and science and finding your niche. But what should they be teaching outside of that? And some people are saying, well, I don't know that we should be teaching leadership. I don't know that we should be teaching the team building. But when you think about it, like I tell my kids, hey, you're going to be the leader of your life. You're going to be the leader of your family, right? You are going to be a leader no matter what you're doing. You're going to have to work with teams within everything. So what are these important things, and how do we teach our kids that? How do we get it integrated into the education system, or teach it at home? What are resources that we should be teaching and training them at home to do these things?
Oh yeah. Okay. There's a lot to unpack in that question. So if I take just one step back from the what, and we start with instead the why, my personal mission outside of the organizations is to change the way that we as society value humans. And the reason for that is I think once we can shift what we actually find is valuable in a human being, and we get it away from the things that are irrelevant. So you mentioned math. Understanding math and where to use it and how to use it is important, but I don't need my kid to know their times tables. I really don't, because the joke when I was growing up was, you better learn them because you're not going to carry a calculator with you everywhere you go. Well, guess what I do? It's called my iPhone, right? But the other thing is when it comes to doing any kind of career intensive job, ask an accountant. I don't know any other job that uses numbers more than that, or even like rocket science. They don't do the equations anymore. Machines do. And those machines don't need vacation pay and time off, and they're pretty darn accurate compared to the human error, right? So it's really shifting away from the technical side to the stuff that's going to not only be relevant. If we teach a 10-year-old coding, for example, there's been over 250 languages of coding. So by the time they graduate high school at 17 or 18, whatever language they learned is obsolete. They're using something else now, right? So we got to get away from teaching the tech, and we need to look at what's actually going to serve them for the next 30, 40, 50 years of their human lives, not just careers. Ultimately, if as a society, we can stop judging people on their A's on math. The other thing is, let's get rid of the darn multiple choice test. Like, aside from math, even science, definitely history, and certainly English, there's no right answer to anything. Ask a business owner if there's a right answer to how to run their business. There isn't. There's some better answers. There's bad answers, but there's no right answer. And so we can get away from saying, oh, you got the test wrong, and instead talk about the child as the human skills. That's going to serve them longer. The other thing is, how many artists don't actually pick up a paintbrush till they're 40 because it was never valued as a trait, being creative? How many people are so good at connecting with people and making people feel wanted and needed and heard, and they would make incredible leaders, but they're really crummy at math. Maybe they're dyslexic. And so they're just told they're no good growing up. and they're not leaning into those things. If as a society, we can start valuing the human factor, the human skills, instead of these things that just really don't matter once you graduate high school, now me as an individual, I'm not only able to lean into the things that make me happy and fulfilled, but now we've got happy, fulfilled humans doing what they love, and it will serve society having those types of people in the world. So that's, taking a step back and changing how society actually views all of us. In terms of the education system, can you change it? Maybe. We're not going to try, though. So, I always say the protesters out there, thank you for all that you do. But our point of view is when you look at a system that's been around as long as the education system has, even if they wanted to change, by the time they do, and it goes through all the levels of approval, it's already outdated again. It's unfortunately just the vicious cycle of how fast we're evolving. So instead, we're looking to build a new system. And what I love is there's already so many new systems out there. We're looking to simply be a supplementary education vehicle that a parent can opt into utilizing, whether they're in the public school system, private school system, homeschool, unschool, Montessori, Earth school. There's like self-directed learning. There's so many different education models that a parent can do. So we're looking to empower the parent. We're looking to work with the education system, but by no means are we waiting on them. Our model for development of education, curriculum, innovation, software, whatever it is that we're building, has no bearing on the public education system. We just can't wait for that.
I love that you say that, because it just puts everything into the parent's hands or even into the child's hands by saying, okay, well, let me learn these skills and get a supplemental way to learn, instead of saying, oh, well, let's just, see if we can push it through the education system, which we know will take 5, 10, 20 years, right? To make it really happen. And like you said, then it's outdated. So
yeah. And in terms of what should we be focusing on in parents, we need to also understand that when we give our child a high five because they got an A on a paper or a B or whatever the celebration is, they won the race, just remember that you're now telling that child that unless you get the A, you get the high five. And perhaps it's not about the A. Perhaps it's that you noticed that they were studying more for this exam. Perhaps you noticed nothing to do with the exam and you say, wow, I love that you got through that exam. That must have been stressful for you. But hey, you know what I love even more? How you shared your toys in the sandbox. Man, did you see how happy that made little Susie? And really focusing on praising them on the other aspects of that child's behavior.
It's hard to find when we're talking about, that I think parents can do. They're not overwhelmed to say, hey, you did a great job sharing your toy in the sandbox. But when it comes to, teaching them other things and the supplemental things, it's overwhelming for parents, just as it was overwhelming that they had to teach them just the regular things and take the teacher's place. People are working, they're stretching themselves so thin these days. How do you know what else and what to do? It's like, oh my gosh, I just can't even handle. It's like us talking about, really, there's TikTok, Clubhouse, and what else do I have to learn now? Like don't have the capacity. So how do you tell a parent who is at the edge, like, I just don't have the capacity more to take on the responsibility to teach my kids more? I'm sending me to school for that. So what are some strategies that they should use or to do that?
The first thing that I want to tell parents, as well as teachers out there, it's not your responsibility to have all the answers. If we ever get to the point where the teacher is the smartest person in the room, God help us. Because you can only be an expert in so many areas. That's way too much pressure to put on a teacher, whether you're teaching kindergarten or college, right? It's not your job to be the person who knows it all. It's your job to facilitate their love of discovery. And for them to learn how to find the answers for themselves and realize there is no right answer, that it's about looking at all perspectives, all angles of something. I still remember the day that, my stepson, he came out of the room watching a YouTube video and said, I just watched a video on how everybody's making a bigger deal out of these bees dying than it really is. And I said, oh, that's really interesting. Tell me more about that. And then I said, okay, now I want you to go in and find a video that's about why bees dying is bad for the environment. So we watched that, and he comes out and he's just like, his eyes were so big. He's like, I'm so confused. I'm like, good. Now keep watching things until you start to form an opinion and you can understand which parts you want to believe, you feel is more valid or not. So don't feel you need all the answers is my first thing, because sometimes parents get overwhelmed because they're like, well, if I decide to do this homeschooling thing or take them to this particular place and then they have homework or something, I need to know this information in order for my child to be successful. You don't. What you need to do is you need to expose them to just as many opportunities for learning and trying new things as possible. I like to say that we all grow up in bubbles, and kids especially grow up in bubbles, and that forms our opinions. So we're only exposed to as a child what's in our four walls of our home. Then we go on a bus and drive to another four walls, and only what the teachers, principals, and school districts allow in that school am I allowed to be exposed to and understand. And then even when I go to my grocery store, I'm learning about the social niceties, the ethics, am I supposed to look people in the eye when I go down the aisle? Do people get offended if I try to talk to them? What's the slang that we use to interact? So we all grow up in bubbles. If you can expose your child, that's why travel is great for kids. Not that you can travel right now with COVID, but you take them to Texas, right, Melanie? And how they talk, how they interact, the social accepted niceties are different than it is in Boston, right? Like it's just going to be different. And so exposing them is really important. Let your child be a part of the decision as well. This isn't about you going, oh, I wish I was really good at dance when I was a kid. I'm going to put my kid into dance. No, talk to your child and ask them what would they like to try. But you make sure that you understand its try. Some parents have this point of view of, well, if you're going to go into dance, you're committing for 3 years because I'm not sewing these costumes for nothing. Okay, but you could be limiting this child where they maybe just want to try dance because they saw it on TV and they'd love to give it a shot. And then they go, all right, I've tried that. It's not really for me. So I'm going to do something else. And parents, you do the same thing. How many things have you bought on an infomercial or on Facebook ads or a course that you purchased and you watched the first 2 videos and you were like, not for me. I was really excited to try knitting. God, this is overwhelming. I can't handle it, And so we all do it. Let your child do it as well and let them experience things. Let them tell you what they'd like to lean into. And if you think that your child saying that they want to go walk in the park and collect bugs is a waste of time, well, there's a lot of things they do in school that they're learning that is not going to be actually used. You're not going to need to know about early man necessarily when you go to work in whatever job or business you start when you get older, but it's an interesting experience to learn that. So let them, don't worry, everything has to be relevant to them when they're older. Don't worry that you have to know what the answer is. Let your child be a part of that process. Let them stretch, let them experiment. And it's okay if they don't stick with things. You're not breeding a habit of them not following through.
I love all the things you're saying. It really is kind of taking that step back and saying, okay, I don't need to control everything about my child. Let them lean into the things that they love. And I love how you're talking about this stuff about the grades and how things don't matter, and to teach your children that it's okay to fail. It's okay to try things. It's okay to not, spend 5 years at something that you hate, right? Like, don't do that. Don't make your children do that, right? Because we all probably have situations in our lives where our parents made us do something or said, you should keep doing that. My grandma always used to tell the story, I had to play the violin because my sister played the piano, but I really wanted to play the piano, and my brother played this, and my mom said I had to play the violin, but I didn't really like it, so you always hear those stories. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be that way. You can have 2 people play the piano. It's okay.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Parents can just put so much pressure on themselves, but also their kid. I mean, what would you rather as a parent? Your child commit to 4 years getting, going through their accounting, CPA or whatever it is that they're getting there. And then at the end of it go, man, I hate my life. But you committed. Good job. You committed and you spent that, however many tens of thousands of dollars. Good job. But now you hate your life. I would rather my child go through the first year of it and go, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Great. Let's save that money and put it into something. Let them figure out what they want. Because how many of us went to school and are still in the same industry as what we went to school for and are happy?
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, I know so many people that went to school for one thing, and I have a nephew a cousin actually. He went to school. He's 30. He was a nuclear physicist, something very scientific. Got his doctorate degree, got out, and decided, I don't really like this. And now they're telling him he wants to go into more computer programming. They're telling him he has to go back to school because they won't give him a raise or take him to the next position unless he gets his other degree. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's just awful. And then I have the example of my son, who he's going to be a senior in school. He's making money with his companies. We're not sure that there'll be like a career, the things that he's doing, but he's making more money than most people make when they get out of college right now. And he's like, Mom, why should I have to finish? Why should I spend a year of my life?
More importantly, what he's learning as skills in the business will serve him regardless of whatever he goes into. So even if he goes, you know what, I'm painting houses and I'm making lots of money, but this isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life, that's okay. Because if you even have someone else who's painting with you, you're learning about leadership and teamwork. You're learning about having to watch your costs and margins and respecting your time. You're learning about marketing, communication with the customer, and how you have a good experience and a customer excited for the job that you did versus ones that aren't. Quality control, attention to detail. There's so much that's going to serve him for years, like tens of years.
Yeah, doing the business. I don't know if one more year of school is going to serve him or not, but that's the big question that I think a lot of kids have. Why should I go to college? I can be an entrepreneur, and I'm starting an online business, and it's making money. It's a big question today.
Well, I love, Leah, all the list you just kind of told of what I think you referred to them earlier as soft skills. It's kind of like those human skills, but there's business skills and there's entrepreneurship skills. And then there's, math and English and history that we learn in regular trade school. But, what are some of those other soft skills that you can kind of list out? And where can people learn those things?
Yeah, it's so interesting because we just finished doing a research project with University of Lethbridge where they had 125 students really investigating soft skills. The thing is soft skills. So soft skills and hard skills, for those listening who aren't familiar with those terms, soft skills is a terrible term. And it's basically accounting for the things that we can't measure, communication, resiliency, leadership, collaboration, persuasion. There is a debatable amount of how many, but I can tell you there's probably at least over 120 of them. And they're all human skills. What I'm trying to shift right now in the commentary is just skills that are human skills, things that we can do really well that are going to not only matter, they will also make us feel more in touch with ourselves, therefore more happier, more fulfilled, more in tune, self-awareness of ourselves. It's also going to ensure that we're never having to compete with AI for jobs, right? I don't need my child to be a living calculator because AI will be able to work longer hours faster and not need vacation. So why would I want to make sure my child gets A's in math? Who cares, right? So when you talk about these human skills, it's really all the things that we just take for granted. And oddly enough, if you had to describe your best friend, your best boss, or your best employee, the reasons why you really like them and why they're the best is because of all of these human skills. You probably describe them as, they just really make me feel like they're listening to me. I feel heard with them. They make me feel safe. I love how they come up with unique ideas. Man, nothing holds that person back. If I give that employee a task and they hit roadblock after roadblock, they just keep going. Those are all describing human skills: persistence, adaptability, communication, empathy, self-awareness. There's decision-making. Decision-making, my goodness, it's so incredible that people just go, man, why aren't you taking more action? It's because they haven't flexed their decision-making muscle. That's a skill. It's not something that we're naturally born with. And it's actually something that's definitely not cultivated until that child has to start paying their own rent somewhere, because we've always said, do you want apple or orange juice? You don't really get an option. Do you want a multiple choice test? Because that's all you're getting. You have the choice of A, B, C, or D. They don't actually get to stretch their wings and make decisions. So think about the person that you care about the most and really describe why everything you've just listed is a human skill. And what you need to do is now write down your list of what are the things that you really cherish about yourself. Why do you think that you're successful in any role that you've been in? Those moments that you felt like you'd really achieved something, why was that? And, we've all won a race, but there might be some that stand out. And it's because we go, man, because I know I really tried hard at that one. I really gave it my all. I woke up extra early every morning. Whatever it is, those are all the human skills and they all have a name.
Well, thank you. This has been such a great interview, right, Jen?
Yes, awesome. Tell us where we can find you and where we can find more information and how we can get the supplemental materials.
For sure. So we have two organizations. One of them is a registered charity. It's called Build a Biz Kids. We do a lot of innovation there. So buildabizkids.com not only offers programs, we have summer camps that are available for 2021. And we usually have something always going on event-wise that can either support parents or kids. So buildabizkids.com, our social media handles are at buildabizkids.com. We also have the BDK network, and the next cohort is registering for September right now. And essentially that is a program where you place your child in, and just like when people say, oh, what's your child in? You say, oh, they're in soccer or karate. It insinuates they're in something and they keep going. It's the same thing with us. They go in, they keep going, and they learn about business, social impact, advocacy, economics, and everything is a hands-on project where kids from all over North America are in one classroom. So that's bbknetwork.com, same with the social handles. If you'd like to contact me, I am on LinkedIn. I'm the only Leah Coss on there. So please feel welcome to reach out. I'd love to connect with everybody.
Thanks so much, Leah, for being here today. I think everybody learned a lot about education and all the different options in there. If you're looking to write a book, make sure you reach out to us at Elite Online Publishing. We help you write the book with a VIP day if you need that, where we create the majority of your book in one day. And then we also help you publish the book and market the book. We don't help you, we actually do it for you. We do all the heavy lifting, and we make your book a #1 bestseller and show you how to use your book for yourself and your business. We'll see you next time right here. Have a great day.
Bye.
Hey, are you looking to increase your revenue, build credibility, and elevate your brand? This podcast is brought to you by Elite Online Publishing, an innovative publishing and full spectrum marketing company. They will publish and market your book to make it a #1 bestseller. Becoming an author is the best way to market your business. So contact them at eliteonlinepublishing.com today. All of their authors become #1 bestsellers.